What's up, Helldivers? Today we're making another build. But first, I'm really close to 100 subscribers, and like that's crazy because like this is just a hobby. So I really appreciate everybody who tunes in. And without further ado, let's get into the build. Now, as y'all are probably guessing by the title, of course, we're gonna do a Mandalorian build, and this one is pretty thematic. So that means we're gonna be picking things based off of obviously the Mandalorian, Boba Fett. So again, not going to be necessarily meta or something you can bring into Helldive. I will talk about variations and things you could change up that would make it more consistent with Helldive mode, because funny enough, I think everything in this kit does actually perform at that level. So I was going in thinking I was a little worried that it wasn't going to like work out and it was going to be something that was just strictly for fun, but no, this actually performs. So let's start off with the basics. All right, so starting off with your basic kit here. Or start with the primary weapon. So Mandalorians, they have blasters most of the time. So we need a primary that kind of suits that similar playstyle or that similar archetype. Anything in the energy slot for us, I think, works pretty accurately. Or it's the best one-to-one comparison I think we have at the moment. For me, I go with the Scorcher. Luckily, the Scorcher is actually very good. It's good against the bugs. It's great against the bots. Did I mention this build works for the bots too? Crazy. So after the Scorcher, we need a pretty slick sidearm. So we got three choices. We have the Senator, we have the Verdict, and we have the Peacekeeper. My favorite out of these three, obviously, the Senator. I mean, hell, Star Wars is kind of based off of Western, and Mandalorian, we do have a couple scenes where it's a Western shootout, so this fits appropriately, I think. But if you want something to help you actually clean up lower tier ads, because Scorcher, if you don't know, it's kind of a heavy hitter. And so when you come into contact with a lot of like hunters or troopers or something like that, it's a little bit of an overkill. So that's why you kind of want to use your secondary to take out those low tier enemies. I prefer the Peacekeeper actually over the Verdict. The Verdict, I don't like very much. Something about it just feels off to me. It doesn't feel as like smooth. So I'd go with the Peacekeeper if you want something more of an ad clear, but if you just want to look cool as fuck, I mean, Senator is always a good choice. I'm really familiar with the Senator, and so that's usually my pick. And then let's move on to grenades. So there's two grenades that I've been bouncing between. Both have their pros and cons. So stun grenades. I've been using these a lot lately. They're really nice. I want to incorporate them in the build, but you'll see later that this is a little bit limited at structure damage. You're only going to have your stratagems to do that. And you'll see that your stratagems for dealing with structure damage, not so great with this build overall. That's maybe one of the weaknesses, and we'll talk about that at the end. So I do think you need to use an impact grenade for this. It's basically a thermal detonator anyways, you know? Because you're going to be relying on grenades for structure damage or consistent structure damage, I go with the armor, I go with the engineering kit. So that's anything that gives you those two extra grenades to throw. Now, aesthetically speaking, with the armor and your helmet, pick whatever you want. I don't think we really have anything at the moment that really is like a one-to-one, that, you know, classic Din Djarin Mandalorian or Boba Fett. So anything really goes here. I just go with the engineering kit. That's my favorite, and again, it's because those two extra grenades help you with that this lack of structure damage that we're gonna have going on. Oh, and real quick, if anybody was wondering, where's the dog? Yeah, she's right there. She was here the whole time. She's just taking a nap because we went on a long walk. All right, and then we're gonna get to our stratagems, which I like to say is the meat and potatoes of the builds. And first one is an easy layup. That's the jetpack. Very iconic with the Mandalorian to be using a jetpack. Jetpack in game, great mobility, helps you get around, gets you out of bad situations, gets you on the high ground. It's one of my favorite picks. Is it necessarily a great pick for Helldive mode? Not all the time. You really need a build that synergizes with it. This one kind of does an okay job at it, but you'll see why maybe this actually does work out a little bit in its favor when we get to the next stratagem. And with that next stratagem, we got three choices. Two are going to be for the automatons, and then there's only really one choice for the bugs. So let's start with the bots first. Rail cannon or the AMR. Both of these are sniper rifles in a sense. The rail cannon actually fits Mando's weapon the best with the phase pulse blaster. This thing basically just vaporizes people, and in game the rail cannon does like vaporize bugs. So thematically, this actually works out pretty well, but it is basically a sniper, so that's why I give the AMR also a pass. And both these weapons, thankfully, are very good against the bots. So they both are very good at nailing down those crit spots, which is usually the head or an exposed weak spots with the glowing vents. So both of these, both very good choices for the bots. Moving on to the bugs, it's pretty obvious we're gonna use the flamethrower. The Mandalorian flamethrower is freaking awesome. He uses it sometimes against like the horned devil guy, which is obviously resistance to fire. So maybe not his brightest moment, but very solid pick against the bugs. This is probably the best stratagem overall for the bugs. This cleans up everything. This is a charger killer. So as you're starting to see, this build, so far so good. I mean, you have the jetpack, great mobility. It's an option, maybe not always the best. But then your stratagem weapon you're picking here is, all three of them are high tier for the race you're going against. So let's move on to the next two stratagems. And we're going to go with 2 Eagle airstrikes, whichever ones you want. But let's talk about why Eagle airstrikes and not, say, orbitals or mines or turrets. Well, as a Mandalorian, you have very, signature ships. We got the Slave one, we got the Razor Crest. So we're kind of going to, fantasize a little RP going on here. That the Eagle airstrikes are serving as our personal starships. So for me, the base Eagle airstrike is the best. This thing does good ad clear and also good heavy damage, and it does structure damage. It's kind of like an all-in-one, not the best at all, any of them, but like it does just a blanket balanced damage to everything, and it's very handy. You get 3 charges. And the next one, I go with the 500 kilogram bomb. This is just to take out chargers and Bile Titans, mostly Bile Titans. For the bots, obviously, this will help in a pinch against a Hulk or a tank or a Strider Factory. So these are both very good choices. Now, let's also mention about airstrikes. There's a little bit of a skill learning curve with them, because if you expend all the charges on one of them, it stays dead until you expend all the charges on the other one. So that means if you have 3 airstrikes and you use all your 500 kilograms, your 500 kilograms is going to stay nil until you use up all your airstrikes. So the way you want to play it is you kind of keep this in the back of your mind. You want to keep them kind of in line with how many charges, and then when you rip the last one on, say, your airstrike, you want to make sure you get your 500 kilograms used right away. So it can kind of put you in a pickle, but as long as you kind of stay conscious about it, it's not really an issue. All right, well, let's say you don't want to use 2 Eagle airstrikes. You just want to use 1. That's fine. We got something for that too. The Basilisk. It's a Mandalorian war machine. What do we have? We have exosuits, the mechs. So if you want to throw one of these on there as well, perfectly fine. I feel like it fits the theme of what we're going for. And luckily, the exosuits in this game, they're pretty good. I wouldn't say like they're the best, but they're not the worst. There's some like in the middle to great category. Like they can be really good, but you got to kind of be careful with them, because if you use, say, the autocannon one against the bugs, well, the Bile Titan, you're going to be shooting 20 plus rounds at it. It's just not very efficient, and you're kind of stuck in that thing. So you got to be careful about that. But if you know which exosuit to use, this kind of like rounds out the build in a decent way. So I think that's a pretty solid pick as well. Again, if you don't want to have to worry about using both those Eagle airstrikes. So we'll get into the chart first, and then we'll kind of go over an overall weakness and strengths of this build, and then kind of the final stamp of approval if this is good enough for Helldive mode. So starting with the bug chart, you see that because you have the flamethrower, chargers are your S tier. You take them out so easy. And then because you have the Scorcher, that it kills everything else good. But again, it's that magazine size that you have and the amount of magazines you have that make this gun that if you use it all the time, you're going to run out of ammo really quick. So everything in that good category, it kills efficiently. And then you have your sidearm also to help clean up all those, and not a problem. And you can see that the normal nursing spewer is in the good category, as you can see below caution, is because the Scorcher, I think, is made for killing those fuckers. And then we move on to the caution, and again, Shriekers, the Breaker Incendiary is just so good at dealing with those. So you still gotta worry about them. You don't want to use your Scorcher against those. You don't want to use your sidearm. Flamethrower might be the best bet, but again, you don't want to be over relying on your Flamethrower to kill everything because you only have 4 canisters. And so if we're keeping in theme, we're not taking a supply pack or anything like that. So you just got to be, mindful of that. And then danger, we have the Bile Titan. I think Bile Titan by default is always in danger because you really have to take it down with multiple parts of your kit. So in this instance, the things that you have to take it down with are either your 2 airstrikes, which both at this moment do damage to it if you choose the default airstrike and the 500 kilogram. And then if you choose to go with an exosuit, you make sure you pick the Patriot with those rockets. I think those need a buff, by the way, to also do damage to it. But you still gotta watch out for them. It's not a get the fuck out moment. It's a just make sure you have everything planned out for it. And then pulling up the chart for the bots, the Scorcher is really good at handling all these things. It does damage to because Hulks and tanks have vulnerable spots. It's good at dealing with those as well. And then obviously it cleans up Devastators, Berserkers, Troopers. It's really, I feel like the Scorcher may be the S tier gun to take out most of the bots. Your secondary, not going to be very useful other than dealing with the Troopers. But your stratagem weapons, on the other hand, so if you're going with the Railgun, it's going to be really good at killing Devastators in the crit spots, and also can do the same thing to Hulks. You just got to line up those shots. That's why this build's a little bit more difficult to use, because you do have to use precision weapons to get the most out of it. Now, the AMR, I think, edges it out a little bit more, but you kind of lose out on that thematic fantasy, because the AMR is really good at actually taking out gunships because of that rapid sniper fire. I think it takes 3-4 shots to an engine to take them down, and you can do that in rapid succession, as opposed to the railgun, which you shoot once, you reload it, charge it up again, always go in safe mode, by the way, and then do it again. So AMR might be a little bit more efficient, but we're going with a thematic fun theme here, so you don't go wrong with the railgun either, by the way. And then the factory strider, you should be using your Eagle airstrikes on them, but also those bigger targets should be really a team effort anyways. And again, these builds are not solo minded. You are playing with a squad, so always keep that in mind and don't go off by yourself. Play with your teammates. So strengths and weaknesses with this build. Because of the variation between the flamethrower and the railgun and AMR, you have all your enemies covered, or most of them covered, just with your base kit. And then your stratagems with like the Eagle airstrikes, those help deal with the larger targets. And I was really gonna downplays and say, it might not be Helldive, approved, but taking it into Helldive, as long as I had a decent squad, like I was pulling my own weight. Now you're not gonna be racking up all the kills like with the flame build, but you're gonna be pulling your weight, and you're not gonna be a detriment to your team. So with saying that, it's easily like Helldive approved, Weaknesses though, ammo economy. You're going to be going through a lot of ammo, and you're going to run out probably a few times. That's fine. Just, you need to know when to pick your fights with it. And the jetpack, luckily, helps you stay mobile to get out of situations when you run out of ammo and you need a resupply. Some variations, if you did just want to make this like, Helldive and meta, you could take out the jetpack, put on the generator for the bots. You could throw in an orbital to help deal with Bile Titans and stuff like that. So there are a few things you could swap out if you do just want to make this like super efficient. But again, the point of these builds, they're for fun. They're to, hit a thematic niche. And in this case, we're going with the Mandalorian, and we're kind of just trying to line up what Mando uses 1-to-1 as best we can in game. So this is what I landed on. Tested it out. It's a lot of fun. It's a good time. It kind of a little bit of a learning curve as far as like how you got to deal with situations with these more precision weapons. But overall, I think it works. And let me know if you guys try something similar. I know there's a couple of variations we could, you know, use in here, but these are just, you know, again, what I landed on. So that's it for the build. You know, I appreciate everybody's, you know, coming in and sticking it out to the end here. And yeah, I've got more in mind. I'm shooting for about probably one long video a week, and I throw in shorts, usually just me fucking dying. And until next week, Helldivers, I'll see you then.